What's up, everybody? It is the Spaniard on the moon once again with episode 3 of Let's Talk, where I just go completely unscripted in front of the microphone to talk about some games and some topics that may be relevant at the time. And for episode 3 of Let's Talk, I wanted to talk about a specific game, but also wanted to talk about the phenomenon that surrounds this genre in a sense, and another game that has become extremely popular over the last few months. As always, if you like this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. So let's get started with episode 3 of Let's Talk. I know for a fact that I don't need to tell you this, but for the vast majority of 2020, most of us have been stuck inside. And for those of us who enjoy gaming, that actually means a few things. First, we've had the chance to play a lot more titles, or a lot of different titles throughout the year in comparison to years past. Mostly because, as you guys know, we're all stuck at home, there's not a lot to do. So for those of us that really enjoy gaming, this is a great opportunity to maybe play some of those games that you otherwise would have not even touched. The other thing that we get to consume a lot more is video game related content. And now when I talk about this, I'm not specifically talking about games necessarily, but the content that surrounds games. For example, YouTube channels is this one, Twitch streams, reviews, podcasts, whatever form of content related to video games you may enjoy, and you've gotten to discover a lot more of those. As a matter of fact, I know I would have not started this channel if I wouldn't be forced to spend so much time inside. So not only is there an influx in the terms of the content consumption, but there's also an influx in the amount of content creators out there as well, which, by the way, I think it's great. There's people getting into YouTube, whether that's to live stream or create their own channel to do review videos, talk videos, whatever the heck that might be. There's people jumping onto Twitch to do streams. There's people creating podcasts about gaming and some other subjects. It's just been a very interesting time to take a look at content creation in general. And one of the great things about content creation is that it sometimes can have an influence over its audience. And this can lead the audience to discover games and content that isn't necessarily super new, super groundbreaking, or innovating. And if you guys are wondering what I'm rambling about with this, I'm really talking about how Among Us became so popular. It all really started with Twitch. When you take a look at the game's about 2 years old, if not more at this point. And when it came out, it wasn't necessarily a super popular game. But apparently there were a few content creators who decided to go get the game, give it a try, and the whole thing blew up. The idea of the game, in my opinion, is genius, right? It's a pretty simple concept, but it allows you to enjoy and spend time with friends in a time in which, really now more than ever, we need to have that connection with each other. And I think that game has brought us some of that, and it has been one of the best things to happen in 2020 in terms of gaming. And I get it, the game did not come out in 2020, but you get what I mean. The social elements of the game and the simplicity of the gameplay, and really what the overall objective of the game is, makes it really accessible not only for gamers, but for people outside of the gaming world. They also brought the game to mobile platforms this year, making it much more accessible for everybody. Now, to say that Among Us is the first game ever to bring this sort of social deception, collaboration dynamic into the game, or saying that it's the best at it, I think that would be a stretch. And that leads us to the next part of this video, where I want to talk about a game that I got to try over the last couple of weeks and spend some time with it, and I personally really got to enjoy it, and it follows some of the same dynamics as Among Us has built in within its gameplay, but it also adds another whole layer of complexity to it. And if you've read the title of this video, you know the game I'm talking about is Project Winter, or as I also like to call it, Among Us on steroids, but that may not be the best description for it, of course. Project Winter was developed and published by Other Ocean Interactive, and as both the developer and the publisher say, this is the perfect game to backstab your friends. At its core, this game is an 8-person multiplayer game that focuses on both collaboration and deception. Similar to Among Us, where you have crewmates and imposters, here we have 2 teams as well. We have survivors and we have traitors. And following the same lines as these games do, you really don't know who's who. The game throws all 8 players in a winter survival situation where they all have to collaborate, or at least try to collaborate, to overcome things such as hunger, freezing temperatures, and maybe hostile animals as well. The goal for the survivors tends to be actually quite simple. You want to fix the radio station, you want to fix your helipad, and you want to call a rescue helicopter to get the hell out of this place. The problem with all of this is that the traitors also have a plan and objectives of their own. They want to make sure that every other survivor in the game gets killed, by any means necessary. Whether that's a bullet to the head, poison food, or throwing you into the wolves, it doesn't really matter. As long as the survivors die, the traitors win. Now, one of the most outstanding features of Project Winter is the fact that even survivors and traitors have specific classes that are randomized at the time when the game is launched. So for example, you may have somebody who is a hacker, you may have somebody who has access to a secret armory, you may have somebody who's a medic and can heal other players faster, or even revive other players. This game dynamic makes the collaboration elements even more interesting, because players have to use and complement those abilities with one another if they want to make sure they can escape. Now, as soon as the game begins, players are going to have a few tasks that they need to take care of to fix first the radio station, so they'll probably be collecting some wood and collecting some stones out there. One of the cool things about this, and this might sound more like a Minecraft-like feature, is actually crafting your own tools. So if you want to collect wood faster, you want to make sure you can craft an axe. And if you want to collect stones faster, you want to make sure you get a pickaxe. So as you explore this world, you can really focus on gathering resources, you can focus on exploring certain areas of the game, and maybe discovering a few secrets here and there. You may be able to find some wild animals that you get to fight against, or you may also find some weapons throughout the world. How you want to approach that experience at the beginning is completely up to you. But you always want to keep in mind what are your objectives, whether you are a survivor and the point is to escape, or whether you're a traitor and your goal is to get everybody killed. Now, one of the coolest features that Project Winter brings into the table, and something that makes it substantially different from Among Us, is the use of a proximity voice chat in the game. So you don't have to set up some random Discord party with your friends to be able to get this going. There are also walkie-talkie options that allow two specific players to communicate with one another. And if you happen to be a traitor, turns out that you start with a walkie-talkie of your own to communicate with the other traitor in the game. Also, remember how I said the goal of the traitors was to get everyone killed? One of the cool things that Project Winter also brings to the table is the ability for survivors to fight back if a traitor is trying to kill them. Now, whether they're successful or not, that's a completely different story. I really want to say that this game is a ton of fun, especially when you're playing with people that know what they're doing. One of the things the game does pretty much from the moment you boot it up the first time is it gives you this massive text tutorial that you're supposed to read front to back to figure out all the different nuances and concepts of the game. That's easier said than done. You can read everything in there, but more than likely you're going to forget some of these things and you're going to have to learn those through playing the game itself. But I definitely want to say that the learning curve is highly rewarding for a game like this one. The more games you get on your belt, the more strategies you're able to develop, especially early on where you might be really lost and just focusing on getting those resources. Depending on what your role is in the game, if you're more focused towards getting weaponry, you might want to really launch yourself into that. But like with everything, you're going to learn those things as you play. The game offers two distinct play modes. One in which games are much quicker, they take about 15 minutes or so total. Everything's a lot more fast-paced in there, there's not really a lot of room for strategy or to be able to utilize those roles to the best of their advantage. And then you have a mode that is much more in-depth, and I think that's how the game is actually meant to be played, which is a much longer game. It takes about 30 to 45 minutes to get everything completed. You have to collect more resources, they tend to be more scarce around the map, but there's a lot more to do as well. Now, one of the challenges that Project Winter really faces is how small its player base is, especially when you get to compare it to a game like Among Us that has millions upon millions of players, I think. And that probably is a bit exaggerated, but in my mind, that was the best way to describe the gap between these two in terms of player base. With that being said, it was never difficult in my personal experience to find a lobby or to find a game to play with people. Now, sometimes to get a full party, you may have to wait 5-10 minutes, but if you're willing to deal with that, this game would be an excellent addition, and I would highly recommend it. Now, another thing that goes against it is its price point. Normally at MSRP it sits at $20, but there are sales every now and then where you can get the game for about $5-6 or so on Steam. If you catch one of those sales, I highly recommend you pick up the game. I think if you like Among Us, this is going to be an amazing title for you. It adds another layer of complexity which makes the game a lot more interactive. And definitely requires a lot more planning and a good strategy to make sure that you can succeed in the game. Alright guys, that's going to be everything from me today. As always, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more content like this in the future. Also, make sure you take care of yourselves and that if you can, you take care of each other. I'll see you next time.